Bienvenidos al club. Os traemos una nueva entrega de estos especiales que estamos haciendo durante este confinamiento. Una vez terminamos los NBAdictos confinados, recordando los mejores momentos de cada uno de nuestros invitados, estamos haciendo unos especiales charlando con gente que es la que más sabe de esto de la NBA. Y vamos directos a la fuente. Hablamos con John Krasinski, que cubre los Timberwolves. Hablamos con Joe Bardon, que se encarga de los Cavs. Ambos miembros de The Athletic. Y hoy charlamos con Ethan Strauss, que se encarga de los Warriors. Y que además ha escrito The Victory Machine, un libro imprescindible. Aquí comienza el capítulo 248 de NBAdictos. Y lo hacemos pues como hemos hecho en la última ocasión, como hicimos en el capítulo que hablamos con Joe Bardon. Vamos a tener tanto la entrevista en original en inglés como después doblada. Así que si queréis escuchar la entrevista doblada, pasad directamente al minuto 35 aproximadamente, porque primero la tendréis íntegra en inglés, tal cual como la grabamos con Ethan Strauss, como os decimos, autor de The Victory Machine, ese libro que cuenta la construcción y la destrucción de los Warriors, de esa dinastía ganadora de 3 anillos y que Durant mediante acabó como el rosario de la aurora. Un libro que merece mucho la pena. Tengo que pediros disculpas porque, bueno, ya sabéis que yo soy muy crítico con mi nivel de inglés. Hoy particularmente no estoy nada contento con cómo me desenvolví en la entrevista, pero bueno, creo que Ethan estuvo mucho mejor que yo, supo levantar con sus respuestas una entrevista muy mejorable por mi parte, pero que nos deja anécdotas muy curiosas. No hemos entrado a destripar por completo el libro, porque lo bueno es que os lo compréis y lo leáis. Por cierto, se lo pregunté en la entrevista, pero me acaba de mandar un mensajito Ethan diciéndome que todavía no saben si se va a traducir o no al castellano. Que lo va a preguntar con la editorial y en cuanto sepa algo nos lo comentará y os lo diremos aquí en NBAdictos. Así que nada, os dejamos con la entrevista de Ethan Strauss. Ya sabéis, primero en versión original y pues sobre el minuto 35 más o menos empezaréis a tener la versión doblada. Muchas gracias, que lo disfrutéis.
Stars hang with stars, winners hang with winners.
Welcome to the House of Strauss on the Athletic Podcast Network.
Ethan Strauss reports on the Golden State Warriors for The Athletic, and he uses to remember us that he was fired from the ESPN. He hosts the NBA podcast House of Strauss, and he was close witness to the greatest NBA dynasty in the last decade, one of the greatest of all time. And he just wrote and published The Victory Machine, so we can all understand better, as it says in the subtitle, the making and the unmaking of that dynasty. Welcome to NBAdictos, Ethan, and thank you very much. It's a pleasure having you on our show.
It's a pleasure being here. Thanks so much for having me.
First of all, before we talk about your book, how is the coronavirus situation there in San Francisco? Are you and your family okay?
Oh, yes, we're okay. I think that all things are relative. It's merely an inconvenience for us right now, thank God. And so, yes, things are decent. Things are decent.
Great. We heard Steve Kerr saying that the Warriors season is over, but they will compete if they have to. Now it seems that we will have maybe 3 to 5 regular season games in Orlando before the playoffs. What can you tell us about that? How is all this seen in San Francisco?
Well, I don't think that people in the Bay Area have any sort of demand or want for the Warriors to play some regular season games. I don't see anybody caring about that at all. I don't understand why the NBA would want to do it, apart from maybe there's some technicality where if they don't do it, the collective bargaining agreement might need to be renegotiated. It just doesn't seem to be smart. You need to reduce risks right now, and you need to have fewer people involved if you can. So I don't fault the NBA for trying to have a playoffs. I think they could pull it off. I think they could do it. But trying to do the regular season months after it stopped with teams that aren't in it and don't want to be. I mean, Steve Kerr is saying loud and clear when he says that the Warriors do not want to be doing this. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So hopefully the NBA will come to its senses. I think that they can complete the season. What's going to be difficult is trying to continue and have another season. That's going to be the big hurdle going forward.
I agree with you. We will talk about Kevin Durant later, but a former NBA journalist here in Spain, very veteran, said 2 days ago that your book is nothing but a radiograph of his author reflected in the mirror of his meanness. And he said that you spent more time talking bad about Durant than talking about his injury. You are grown up enough to defend yourself, but being honest, I think that Ramon Trecet didn't read the same book as I did. But even if he were right, this is not about a book about Durant. It's about the Warriors dynasty, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really understand that one. I think when an excerpt comes out, people sometimes think that the book is entirely whatever the excerpt is. To my mind, it's more about the modern NBA and the power struggles within it. And insofar as Kevin Durant is discussed, I think it's because he is very emblematic of the modern superstar and what a lot of players are going through. When Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, says that the stars right now, they're all miserable, which was a shocking admission for an NBA commissioner to make. And so that's how I see it. I mean, Kevin Durant's very interesting, but to me, to my mind, I only want to talk about something insofar as something else can be understood from it. So talking about Kevin Durant lets you inside the minds in a way of superstars currently, right? And so at least that's how I saw it. But yeah, I don't know. I wasn't aware of that particular criticism, and I think it's fine for people to have their criticisms. I don't have to agree. To quote Colin Cowherd, the American radio host, I can have an opinion. You can have an opinion about my opinion. I don't need to have an opinion about your opinion of my opinion.
It's great, that. I don't know how much can I say without spoiling it. Well, it's not a spoiler if I say that they won 3 championships and Durant left, but I think that is very important. You talked before about the understanding, the context in every story that we tell is very important. Here you talk about how almost every character in this play take his place, from the owner, Joe Lacob, to the most important players, and also the front office and the coach. How many time did you spend preparing this book, gathering information, doing interviews, writing it? How many times since you started it until it was on the stores?
It's hard to say because a lot of the book is informed from being around and working on different projects around the Warriors, but I can remember starting to really structure it a little bit before the playoff run, and then trying to keep a diary during the playoff run, and then completing it over the summer. And I just really decided that I wanted to capture what was happening in the league, because it seems as though the NBA is at a crossroads right now, and that a lot of the old assumptions are falling apart, that certain loyalties you could rely on are no longer there, that players are not playing their entire career, or most of their careers, with one team, but the most successful ones are going from team to team to team, and that's changing the dynamic between fans and the game. And so I sort of got an idea that this was something to focus on, I think, in right before the springtime. And I also knew to focus on the Durant Warriors situation before that, because honestly, I knew he was leaving in the winter time, and I mean, knew he was leaving, but for something shocking happening. So that was another thing to track and to focus on.
You did a Kaiser Sose reference talking about the previous owner, Chris Cohan, in page 21. You really had me in that moment.
I think I called him a Kaiser Sose failure, I believe,
Yeah.
Chris Cohan,
Yeah.
because he was such a hermit. He was such a mysterious man. You never saw him. You just knew that he was responsible for bad things. And in my opinion, that NBA owners you don't want to have them too involved, but it's a bad thing when they're not involved at all, because it creates a power vacuum. And in that power vacuum, it's a lot like the TV show Game of Thrones, where various factions compete and stab each other trying to get to the top spot. And that's not the makings of a well-organized organization that's working towards victory. So that was a lesson that I learned from the Chris Cohan experience and what occurred when it went from that to the Joe Lacob experience.
There is with Stephen Jackson, I think, with his negotiation of his last contract, that it tells a lot of that vacuum of power. Yeah.
There was a guy named Robert Rao around that time that Chris Cohan was running the team, who stepped up and decided that he was going to act as the general manager of the team, and he was going to go behind people's backs to do it. And things got a little goofy when that was happening. And at a certain point, the player Steven Jackson, he just got his contract renegotiated out of nowhere because Robert Rao wanted to seem like he was doing things. And my colleague Marcus Thompson at one point was talking to Steven Jackson during those days, and suddenly Steven Jackson, and I'm paraphrasing, said to Marcus, "Hold up, I need to pretend to like this motherfucker so I can get my money." And he leaves to, butter up and suck up to Robert Rao. So it was a very dysfunctional setting back then.
Yeah. One thing that I love of House of Strauss is that we don't heard any pee or any silence. It's great.
Yeah, that's at the Athletic we can curse. That's something that we are permitted to do as a subscription service.
Yeah, we are talking a lot about The Last Dance in these last days. I don't want to enter in that too deeply, but in that documentary, Jordan by Jordan show, we see a dynasty in which one player had almost all the importance. This Warriors dynasty worked more as a sitcom, as like Friends, in which we have several characters.
An ensemble cast, yes.
Yeah, with similar weight in the story.
Yeah, I think that there were more, the power was spread a little bit, but you see those dynamics play out similarly, where Pat Riley would talk about the disease of more, or the disease of me. I think both phrases have been used, that the problems don't come from winning, they come from after you win, because guys feel like they don't get enough credit. And you can see that with the Bulls, where Jerry Krause, the GM, always felt like he wasn't getting the deserved amount of credit. And Scottie Pippen was very bitter over being underpaid, and that was creating problems. And you see something similarly play out with the Warriors, where people want credit, people want acknowledgement, and winning the games doesn't do the trick completely of validating. They're looking for other sources of validation. So it is a tale as old as time, I suppose.
And in terms of validation, also the fans, we are not always happy because we love a team until it wins, and when it wins, we start to hate them. First thing we had the team that almost everybody fell in love, the Splash Brothers, that great defense, but there was also lack and work behind that 2015 and 2016 team, right, Ethan?
Yeah. Oh, sure. Certainly. It does flip that way too, that you're everybody's darling, and then you start beating teams, and then those fan bases start to hate you. And then when they got Kevin Durant, after having won the 73 games, then people felt like it was unfair, and they felt it was decadent. It was too much. So they did, in a way, go from heroes to villains. And I think what was also difficult was that even though it still requires a tremendous amount of effort to grind your way through an NBA season and win a championship, it was just completely expected that they would win because they had such talent. So there wasn't the joy of overcoming expectations that seems necessary to keep everybody happy.
Mm-hmm. We'll talk later about the joy, but you talk about Kevin Durant. We have to take him to the conversation. Ethan, what makes Kevin Durant happy?
Certainly not me. I think we have learned that. I am not somebody who helps to make Kevin Durant happy, which is you're alluding to how he yelled at me. I think during a shoot around. You don't know what makes me happy. You don't know what makes me happy in front of the other media members, which is quite shocking. Around that time, he did not give all appearances of being happy. He seems to be very sensitive when it comes to discussions of how happy he is. Recently, Bob Myers was saying that there was no joy in the final championship season that they had, and Kevin Durant made an Instagram comment basically saying that everybody looked like joyful in the championship picture, and so that seems to be something that he reacts to. But no, he wasn't. He was very moody. He was very up and down. And you could see it from his perspective because he had done all the things on paper that would result in being celebrated as the best player, but it wasn't happening like it was for LeBron James. And even though he had beaten LeBron James twice in the NBA Finals and he'd gotten Finals MVP, people weren't coming away from that and saying Kevin Durant is now the best player. And that seemed to fuel a certain dissatisfaction with the situation he had chosen and bring the entire situation to a conclusion.
Mm-hmm. It seems kind of weirdo from my perspective that a huge player like Durant, for me, for some years the best player in the league, is so obsessed with the press and with the fans and all the things people say about him. When he's winning, he was in the best team. It's the new NBA.
Yeah, I think what we're learning is that this technology we use, it's only moderately withstandable for regular people, but when you scale it up for a famous person and you have social media, it can easily give you the wrong priorities and obsess you with what people are saying about you. It's very difficult to ignore all of that. It's powerful. I mean, to be argued about on television and to not have a feeling about that is quite difficult, and that sometimes what propels these guys to greatness, they are looking for validation. They're desperate for a kind of validation, for proving themselves, and now they're in a trap because they're never going to completely prove themselves. And so much of the sports conversation thrives on a certain amount of controversy, and so they can never silence all those voices, and they're competitive people, so they want to silence all those voices of criticism. And then when they learn that it's actually impossible and the voices are just going to continue, that's tough to handle. They're not going to get a lot of sympathy for it because they make so much money. But I do think it affects them emotionally, and the proof is in the pudding. A lot of these guys are not happy.
Mm-hmm. We talked before about the beef between Kevin Durant and you. In the chapter that's called Kevin and Me, you tell an anecdote of Andre Iguodala. And I was thinking when I was reading the book that it has to be difficult to be around the NBA players, covering the info for the media. And I really want to know how is an everyday life with NBA players being a journalist. I mean, you have to establish a frontier. You have to be like a friend, but not forgetting your job. You have to remain objective. How do you do such a thing?
It's difficult, but it's a pretty good job, so you don't want to complain about it too much. There are uncomfortable aspects to doing the job, but I always look at it as, okay, suck it up, as we say, stiff upper lip, as the British say. You've got to walk into this, including when there's some controversy and you're getting yelled at in a press conference, and you've got to walk into the locker room the next day. It just comes with the territory. And I've had office jobs before, and I wasn't very well suited to them, and so I try to remember that I'm getting more positives than negatives out of this particular experience. But yeah, you just have to know it's difficult. You have to go in there. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. Sometimes you'll get yelled at. Sometimes you'll get cursed at. That's happened to me a lot. It happens to most of us who do this. And you just live to fight another day. There's no way. There's no other way to do it. And for me, the thing I try to focus on is what is the reader interested in? What do they want to know that's relevant to what's happening with the team? Look, I could ignore that Kevin Durant obviously had a foot out the door and was leaving. A lot of people now, by the way, will pretend like they always knew it and were talking about it, even if they weren't back then. They're going to say like they were. It wasn't the case at that particular time. I felt like I had a responsibility to tell the readers and the fans of the Golden State Warriors that Kevin Durant is leaving. The people on the team expect him to leave. That's what's happening. I would feel bizarre if I were lying about that or hiding that all the time when I was talking about the team. That's a fairly significant aspect of what is going on with the team. So that's the focus. That's the lodestar. It's what's happening with the team that's relevant to the interests of fans. Now, when you talk about that, a few things can happen. One is that the player is really mad at you and in person is going to yell at you and whatnot. So that's one thing, and you just have to deal with it. And then the other thing is that a lot of fans are going to be mad at you. Even though they're going to click and even if they're going to read it, we have a phrase, shooting the messenger. They might not like the story of what's happening. But I think at some level they do, but they might get mad at it and they might yell at you as well. And so you have to understand that these things are temporary. And so long as you're doing your job, you can't beat yourself up too much about it, and you just have to go forward.
And you have to think that nowadays, no matter what you write, a lot of fans are going to be mad at you.
Oh yeah. Oh, no matter what. And you're nobody special either. You know, it's easy to think that you're some martyr or people are unfair to you, but they're unfair to everybody. I mean, anybody with a public platform at all is receiving some sort of criticism that they don't want to receive. So just remember that you're not special and just try to do a good job. That's all you can do.
Takes my attention that you justified a lot of, for example, Kevin Durant reactions, like you are doing now with the fans. You're always taking the other side and the other side of the things. I don't know if I would be able to do that.
I mean, maybe not. I don't feel. It's funny. I don't think that I like conflict. I don't enjoy it. I just, for whatever reason, often find myself within it, and
maybe conflict loves you.
Yeah, maybe conflict likes me. I always look at it as, okay, I don't want to do this, but I got to do this. I don't want to get involved in this whole thing, but it's just how it's got to be. But I don't actually enjoy the whole process of it, and so my wife often wonders if I have a mismatched personality for my job. I might, but it's worked out well so far, so I'm just going to keep going.
Now that you talk about your wife, I don't want to tell everything that you say on the book, because all the people that are listening to us now are just going to Amazon and they are buying it. But the marriage comparison that Iguodala makes is great. Maybe the greatest ever.
Yeah, the marital comparison about when you're talking about when Andre is telling me to apologize to Durant and saying, "Look, great. I'm married. You married. Sometimes you just got to apologize for some shit you didn't even do." That's a pretty good line there from Andre.
Almost for life.
Yes.
Not only Kevin Durant.
By the way, it's not just marriage. Sometimes you do have to. Well, maybe if not apologize, at least acknowledge where the other person is coming from, right? And sometimes that's all that matters, is that they are hurt over something you did. The main thing you have to remember is that there's going to be no judge. There's going to be no court that descends from the heavens into your house and says, you are correct in this argument. Yeah. So once you realize that, then you realize that you have to deal with however they feel. I mean, this is not exactly in the book, but I think it's a good lesson for life nonetheless.
Yeah, and talking about players, normally you say that players don't read your articles or articles at all, but someone tells them they write this about you. But with KD, it's not like that. He really reads everything.
Yes, reads everything, or at least did. I don't know how things are since going to the Brooklyn Nets, but reads everything and has a lot of specific thoughts on specific sentences, and that's unusual. You don't usually see guys consume content about themselves to that degree, and you don't have to be anybody special to be read by him. I'm not saying like, oh my God, Kevin Durant read my stuff, I'm such a big deal. I mean, it's everybody. It's everybody. So I don't understand it, but maybe that sort of mentality is indivisible from the one that made him great. We keep talking about Michael Jordan off of this documentary doing all these crazy things and needing to win all the time and having all these grievances all the time and finding those grievances. That could be similar to the mentality that Kevin Durant has.
Talking about winner mentality, we have to talk about Steve Kerr, a rookie coach with a lot of experience as a player, as even general manager in the Suns. And in the book, you show how he gets his, I don't know how to say it, like playbook and his way of being a coach.
Philosophy, maybe?
Yeah. But he also seems to be low profile. I don't know in the day-to-day covering the Warriors, he's a huge person to talk with.
Yeah, he seems like he could be your teacher. You could be your high school teacher. There's something about him he's easy to talk to in that way. I understand what you're saying. In America, we say "down to earth" is the phrase that we use. He is very down to earth.
And talking about his coaching skills, do you think that he's a little bit underrated?
I don't know how to rate these things, to be honest. I think that he's incredibly important to changing the Warriors into what they became, and it doesn't happen without him. Now, how to rate him against the other coaches, I don't know. I hear incredible things about Brad Stevens' ability to make play calls and Nick Nurse of the Raptors, his ability to find ideas that nobody else found. That's what's hard, I think, with basketball operations from coaching to the GM. And one of the reasons why a lot of these guys feud over credit is it's very difficult to know who's really great at their jobs. And so I think Kerr is really good. But underrated, I don't know. People talk about him a lot, right? He's quite celebrated. So that'd be difficult for me to say.
I'm a huge Steve Kerr fan. I think that he takes things from the two best coaches of the history, Phil Jackson and Greg Popovich. And also I like that he listened a lot his staff. And you talk about his staff also in the book.
Yeah, he believes in not acting as though you know everything and trying to get the best ideas from everybody, and also to give credit to those ideas. So there's a level of security there where he'll say, hey, my assistant made this suggestion. That was a great suggestion. And so maybe that ends in us not calling him the great genius who came up with it, but it makes his staff feel more included and feel like their work matters, and so they work harder and everybody benefits. That seems to be the philosophy that he employs.
There is a whole chapter in your book that broke my heart. I'm that kind of romantic guy that still wants to believe in one club men players, in team before selfishness, and then you explain all that is behind the sneakers, and I just want to cry. I just want to cry.
You don't like that the superstar's main employer is the sneaker company, is what you're saying? Is that too cynical for you?
No. It's too real.
Well, you have to think about who is your primary employer. Your primary employer is the company that pays you the most money, and for the big superstars, the sneaker company is the one that usually they're going to be with for their entire career, and it pays them the most money. LeBron James is on his 4th NBA team, but he's been with Nike since he was a teenager, and he has a lifetime deal with Nike. So he's more inclined to listen to Nike as far as what he should do going forward than his team. And you wonder, what is their influence on where guys end up? Because they certainly have opinions and ideas about it, and they were completely thrilled that Kevin Durant chose the Warriors rather than stay in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, and you talk about how important was that Stephen Curry put the Warriors in front of Under Armour in this
Yes.
particular time.
Yeah, the sneaker business, it's all about being at the very top of the top. That's how you sell the most sneakers. And once Steph Curry accepted Kevin Durant to the Warriors, he no longer was in the MVP conversation. And the sneaker sales fell, Under Armour stock fell. It was a situation in which he chose team in winning for his basketball team over the sneaker employer. And so that was good for the Warriors, but it was awful for Under Armour.
Mm-hmm. The best quote in that chapter called Sneakers World is the one of Klay Thompson.
Oh, the one where he asked, what does Kevin Durant going to the Warriors mean for Anta?
Yeah.
I mean, the quote I didn't use, was once in the locker room, guys were joking around, and Zion Williamson's Nike shoe, his Jordan shoe, had exploded, and I asked Klay, would that ever happen with Anta? And Klay went, with Anta, no. Anta's made from the finest bamboo. Klay Thompson Anta humor regularly gets me rolling.
It seems that Klay is a quiet guy, but he can make laugh everybody whenever he speaks.
Yeah, he can be very funny, either intentionally or unintentionally.
Yeah. Everybody has to go to Amazon and buy the Victory Machine, the making and unmaking of the Warriors dynasty. But I don't want to let you go without asking you if you think that this dynasty is over. Now we have this strange season, weirdo from the beginning to the end, the loss of David Stern, the loss of Kobe Bryant, the coronavirus, all the moves around the Warriors. First, D'Angelo Russell, then the trade, Andrew Wiggins. What do you think about these Warriors? What can they do in the draft? And do you think in the season 2021 we'll see the Golden State Warriors fighting for the title?
I look at it as it's probably over, but if you have a few things go right, it might continue. In poker, they call it the river card, that last card. You need to hit on the river card. The Warriors need to hit on the river card. They've got a high draft pick coming up in this draft. They've got another draft pick coming from the Minnesota Timberwolves because they're so terrible so regularly. It's probably going to be good in the next season. They need to either hit on those draft picks or hit on one of them or get a good deal for trading one of them and also make a good veteran acquisition. If that all happens, they're back in it. But it's not easy to make those things happen. Mm-hmm. I just see it as a matter of can they do it? If they do, they're back in. If they don't, right now as presently constituted, the roster is not enough to win a championship.
Mm-hmm. I hope that they will come back. I think that when Klay Thompson break his knee and Kevin Durant left to the Nets, everybody came to love the Warriors again.
Yep.
And we want to see the Splash Brothers and that team winning again. And now in San Francisco.
Yeah, I can't remember which singer said that you don't know what you have till it's gone, but there's certainly an element of that. And now that's true of the entire NBA. And boy, do the Warriors need some way for them to safely bring the season back next season. I don't know how it's going to happen. It's going to be really difficult. And as to reconstituting the roster, I don't even know what the salary rules are going to be. So there are many unknowns going forward. And I also wonder if the American public reaches a point where they just go, we don't care anymore about the risks and just accept whatever happens. I mean, that's also a possibility. So much is up in the air right now. It needs to be sorted out over the next year or so.
Mm-hmm. The last question, my listeners are going to kill me if I don't do it. I personally think that is 99% bullshit, but what do you think about Antetokounmpo going to the Warriors?
I don't think it's 99% bullshit.
No.
If you, having read my book, you know what the rule is. What the superstar wants, the superstar gets. I mean, it's that. I mean, to be very simple about it, we can come up with whatever considerations or hurdles, but it all comes down to this. If Antetokounmpo wants to go to the Warriors, it's going to happen. If he doesn't, obviously it won't. So it all is determined by what he wants. He could be very happy now with the Bucks. And after this whole pandemic, maybe that's changed the calculus in some way, and he'll be less inclined to make some big decision. I don't know. I just know that he's represented by the same agency as Steph Curry is, and they're friends, and they talk all the time. Now, who knows? That's not. I'm not saying it's bullshit. I'm not saying it isn't. All I'm saying is that it's in his hands, his very large hands is where the decision is.
You're reducing my percentage to the 50%.
Yeah, we shall see.
Thank you very much, Ethan. It's been a pleasure. I will listen to you every week on the House of Strauss. I will be reading you in The Athletic. Thank you for the job that you guys do in The Athletic. Quality journalism that is very needed nowadays.
Well, thanks for saying that. It's very nice of you, Manuel, and thanks for hosting me for this great interview.
Ahí teníais la entrevista en versión original con Ethan Strauss, autor de Victory Machine, diciendo unas cuantas cosas interesantes que comentaremos el lunes en el programa 249 que os recordamos que tendremos a Denny Horror con nosotros. Hablaremos de The Last Dance y hablaremos de la actualidad de la NBA. Ahora vamos con la entrevista doblada. Espero que os guste.
Stars hang with stars, winners hang with winners.
Welcome to the House of Strap on the Athletic Podcast Network.
Ethan Strauss informa sobre los Golden State Warriors para The Athletic y suele recordarnos que fue despedido de la ESPN. Presenta también el podcast NBA House of Strauss, fue testigo cercano de la mayor dinastía NBA de la última década, una de las más grandes de la historia. Acaba de escribir y publicar The Victory Machine, de modo que todos podamos entender mejor, como dice el subtítulo, la creación y destrucción de esa dinastía. Bienvenido a NBAdictos, Ethan, y muchas gracias. Es un placer tenerte en el programa. Dynasty. Welcome to NBAdictos, Ethan, and thank you very much. It's a pleasure having you on our show.
It's a pleasure being here. Thanks so much for
Es un placer estar aquí. Muchas gracias por invitarme. Before we talk about your book, antes de que hablemos de tu libro, ¿cómo está el tema del coronavirus en San Francisco? ¿Estáis bien, tu familia y tú?
We're okay. I think that all things are relative. It's merely an inconvenience for us.
Oh, sí, estamos bien. Creo que es todo relativo. Es casi un inconveniente para nosotros, gracias a Dios ahora mismo. Sí, las cosas están decentemente bien. Your season is over, but they will compete if they have to. Now it seems that we will have... Genial, hemos escuchado a Steve Kerr decir que la temporada de los Warriors está terminada, pero que competirán si tienen que hacerlo. Ahora parece que tendremos de 3 a 5 partidos de temporada regular en Orlando antes de los playoffs. ¿Qué nos puedes decir esto? ¿Cómo se ve en San Francisco?
In the Bay Area have any sort of demand or want for the Warriors to play some regular season games. I don't see anybody caring about that at all.
Bueno, no creo que la gente de la zona de la Bahía tenga ningún tipo de demanda o quiera que los Warriors jueguen partidos de temporada regular. No veo a nadie a quien le importe en absoluto. No entiendo por qué la NBA querría hacerlo, a no ser que haya algún tecnicismo por el cual, si no lo hacen, el acuerdo colectivo tenga que ser renegociado. No me parece inteligente. Necesitas reducir riesgos ahora mismo. Tienes que tener la menor gente posible involucrada si puedes. No culpo a la NBA por intentar tener los playoffs. Creo que lo pueden lograr, pueden hacerlo, pero intentar jugar los partidos de liga regular meses después de que deparara con equipos que no quieren disputarla. Steve Kerr lo ha dicho alto y claro, los Warriors no quieren hacerlo. No tiene mucho sentido para mí, ojalá la NBA tenga razón. Creo que pueden completar la temporada. Lo que va a ser complicado es continuar y tener una nueva temporada. Eso va a ser un gran obstáculo.
What's going to be difficult is trying to continue and have another season. That's going to be the big hurdle going forward.
I agree with you. Estoy de acuerdo contigo. Hablaremos de Durant más tarde, pero un antiguo periodista NBA en España, muy veterano, dijo que tu libro no es otra cosa que la radiografía de su autor reflejado en el espejo de su mezquindad. Dijo que pasas más tiempo hablando mal de Durant que de su lesión. Eres mayorcito para defenderte tú solo, pero siendo sincero, creo que Ramón Trecet no ha leído el mismo libro que yo, pero aunque tuviera razón, esto no es un libro sobre Durant, es sobre la dinastía de los Warriors, ¿no? To defend yourself, but being honest, I think that Ramón Trecet didn't read the same book as I did. But even if he were right, this is not about a book about Durant. It's about the Warriors dynasty, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't really understand that one. I think when an excerpt comes out, people sometimes think that
Bueno, no entiendo muy bien eso. Creo que cuando sale un extracto de un libro, la gente se cree que el libro es enteramente lo que cuenta el extracto. Para mí trata más sobre la NBA moderna y las luchas de poder en ella. Y se debate sobre Kevin Durant. Yo creo que porque es un ejemplo de la superestrella moderna y de todo por lo que muchos jugadores están pasando. El comisionado Adam Silver dijo que las estrellas actuales son infelices, lo que es una afirmación chocante viniendo de un comisionado de la NBA. Es como lo veo. Kevin Durant es muy interesante, pero para mí, en mi mente, solo quiero hablar de algo si algo más se puede entender con ello. Hablar de Kevin Durant te permite meterte en la mente de las superestrellas actuales. O al menos así es como yo lo veía. Pero no lo sé, no era consciente de esa crítica en particular y creo que está bien que la gente critique. No tengo que estar de acuerdo. Colin Cowherd, el presentador de radio americano, dice que yo puedo tener una opinión, tú puedes tener una opinión sobre mi opinión, pero yo no tengo por qué tener una opinión sobre tu opinión sobre mi opinión.
To have their criticisms. I don't have to agree. To quote Colin Cowherd, the American radio host, I can have an opinion. You can have an opinion about my opinion. I don't need to have an opinion about your opinion of my opinion.
Es muy buena esa. No sé cuánto decir sin destriparlo. Bueno, no es un spoiler si digo que ganaron 3 campeonatos y Durant se marchó. Creo que es muy importante, tú hablabas antes de entender, el contexto en cada historia que contamos es muy importante. Tú hablas sobre casi cada personaje de esta historia y cómo llega a su lugar, desde el dueño Joe Lacob hasta los jugadores más importantes, pasando por el front office y el entrenador. ¿Cuánto tiempo pasaste preparando este libro, recogiendo información, haciendo entrevistas, escribiéndolo? ¿Cuánto tiempo desde que empezaste hasta que llegó a las tiendas? Preparing this book, gathering information, doing interviews, writing it. How many times since you started it until it was on the stores?
It's hard to say because a lot of the book is informed from...
Es difícil de decir porque gran parte del libro parte de estar alrededor de los Warriors y trabajar en diferentes proyectos, pero recuerdo empezar realmente a estructurarlo un poco antes de los playoffs. Intenté mantener un diario durante los playoffs y lo completé durante el verano y decidí que quería reflejar lo que estaba sucediendo alrededor de la liga, porque parece que la NBA está en medio de un cruce de caminos y que las viejas cosas establecidas están desapareciendo. Ciertas lealtades con las que podías contar ya no están ahí. Los jugadores ya no juegan toda su carrera o la mayor parte de su carrera en un equipo. Los más exitosos pasan de un equipo a otro y luego a otro y luego a otro. Y eso está cambiando la dinámica entre los aficionados y el juego. Así que llegué a la idea de que esto era algo en lo que centrarse, creo que en primavera. Y antes de eso sabía que me iba a centrar en la situación de Durant en los Warriors, porque sinceramente supe que se iba a ir en invierno, sabía que se iba a ir a salvo que algo pasara. Y sabía que eso era algo en lo que centrarse.
Right before the springtime. And I also knew to focus on the Durant Warriors situation before that, because honestly, I knew he was leaving in the winter time, and I mean knew he was leaving, but for something shocking happening. So that was another thing to track and to focus on.
Mm-hmm. Hiciste una referencia a Kaiser Sose hablando del anterior dueño de Chris Cohan en la página 21. Me ganaste por completo en ese momento. In that moment.
I think I called him a Kaiser Sose a failure, I believe.
Yeah.
Chris Cohan.
Creo que le llamé Kaiser Sose del fracaso, porque era un ermitaño, un hombre misterioso, nunca lo veías, solo sabías que era responsable de cosas malas. En mi opinión, los dueños de la NBA, tú no quieres que se involucren demasiado, pero es malo cuando no se involucran en absoluto, porque entonces se crea un vacío de poder, y en ese vacío de poder pasa como en Juego de Tronos, con diferentes facciones compitiendo y tratando de ascender, apuñalándose unos a otros para llegar a la cima. Y ese no es el modo de organizar bien una franquicia para que te lleve a la victoria. Esa es una lección que aprendí en la etapa de Chris Cohan cuando pasamos a la etapa de Joe Lacob. There is with Stephen Jackson, I think, with his negotiation of his last contract, it tells a lot of that vacuum of power.
Yeah. There was a guy named Robert Rowell.
Hay una anécdota con Stephen Jackson, creo, con la negociación de su último contrato que dice mucho de ese vacío de poder. Sí, había un tío llamado Robert Rowell en la época de Chris Cohan que decidió que iba a actuar como si fuera el general manager del equipo y que iba a ir por la espalda de otros para hacerlo. Y las cosas se pusieron un tanto disparatadas cuando eso sucedió. En un determinado momento Stephen Jackson consiguió una renegociación de su contrato de la nada, porque Robert Rowell quería que pareciera que estaba haciendo algo. Mi colega Marcus Thompson estaba allí hablando con Stephen Jackson uno de esos días, y de repente Stephen Jackson, y estoy citando directamente sus palabras, le dijo a Marcus: espera, tengo que fingir que me cae bien este hijo de puta para conseguirme dinero. Y se fue a hablar con Robert Rowell. Así de disfuncional era la franquicia entonces.
I need to pretend like this motherfucker so I can get my money, and he leaves to, butter up and suck up to Robert Rowell. So it was a very dysfunctional setting back then.
Yeah. One thing that I love of House of Strauss is that we don't heard any pii or any silence. Una cosa que me gusta de House of Strauss es que no oímos pitidos o silencios. Sí, en The Athletic podemos decir tacos, es algo que nos podemos permitir al ser un servicio de suscripción. Yeah. Estamos hablando mucho sobre The Last Dance estos días. No quiero entrar profundamente en ello, pero en ese documental de Jordan visto por Jordan, vemos una dinastía en la que un jugador tiene casi toda la importancia. Esta dinastía de los Warriors funcionó más como una sitcom en la que todos los personajes tienen un peso similar en la historia. More as a sitcom, as like Friends, in which we have several characters.
An ensemble cast, yes.
Yeah, with similar weight in the story.
Yeah, I think that there were more, the power was spread a little bit, but you see those dynamics play out similarly, where
sí, creo que son más el poder del grupo, pero ves esas dinámicas funcionar de manera similar. Pat Riley lo llamó la enfermedad de más o la enfermedad del yo. Creo que en ambos casos sufrieron de eso. Los problemas no vienen por ganar, vienen después de haber ganado, porque hay tíos que creen que no reciben el mérito suficiente, y lo puedes ver en los Bulls. Jerry Krause, el general manager, siempre creyó que no recibía el mérito que merecía, y Scottie Pippen estaba amargado por estar infrapagado, y eso estaba creando problemas. Si ves algo similar en los Warriors, donde la gente quería mérito y reconocimiento, y ganar los partidos no es suficiente, buscan otro tipo de reconocimiento.
They're looking for other sources of validation. So it is a tale as old as time, I suppose.
And in terms of validation, also the fans, we are not always happy because en términos de reconocimiento, los aficionados tampoco estamos siempre contentos, porque amamos a un equipo hasta que gana. Cuando gana empezamos a odiarlo.
Yes.
First we had the team that almost everybody fell in love, the Splash Brothers, that great defense, but there was also lack and work behind that 2015 and 2016. Primero tuvimos el equipo del que casi todo el mundo se enamoró, los Splash Brothers, esa defensa, pero hubo tanta suerte como trabajo detrás de ese equipo de 2015 y 2016, ¿verdad, Ethan?
You start beating teams, and then those fan bases start to hate you, and then when they got Kevin Durant.
Sí, desde luego, funciona así. Le gustas a todo el mundo y entonces empiezas a ganar. Empiezas a ganar a sus equipos y los aficionados empiezan a odiarte. Y cuando ficharon a Kevin Durant, después de haber ganado 73 partidos, la gente pensó que era injusto, decadente, demasiado. Así que de algún modo pasaron de héroes a villanos. Y creo que lo que también es difícil es que, aunque requiere una gran cantidad de esfuerzo una temporada de NBA y ganar el campeonato, se esperaba que ganaran, por reunir tanto talento. Así que no había la alegría de sobrepasar las expectativas que parece necesario para tener a todo el mundo contento.
To keep everybody happy.
We'll talk later about the joy. Hablaremos luego de la alegría, pero has hablado de Kevin Durant. Tenemos que meterle a la conversación. Ethan, ¿qué hace feliz a Kevin Durant? ¿Es Kevin Durant happy?
Certainly not me. I think we have learned that.
Desde luego no yo. Creo que hemos aprendido eso. No soy alguien que ayude a hacer feliz a Kevin Durant. Creo que te refieres a cuando me gritó durante una sesión de tiro: tú no sabes lo que me hace feliz, tú no sabes lo que me hace feliz, delante de otros compañeros de los medios. Lo que fue chocante en aquella época, no parecía estar muy feliz. Parece que es muy sensible acerca de los debates sobre lo feliz que es. Hace poco Bob Myers dijo que no hubo felicidad en el último campeonato, y Kevin Durant hizo un comentario en Instagram diciendo básicamente que todo el mundo parecía muy feliz en la foto. Así que parece que eso es algo que les suele hacer reaccionar. Pero no lo estaba. Estaba malhumorado, con cambios de humor, y lo puedes ver desde su punto de vista, porque sobre el papel, él había hecho todas las cosas que le tendrían que haber llevado a ser reconocido como el mejor jugador de la liga. Pero eso no pasaba, como sí pasó en su día con LeBron James. Y aunque él había vencido a LeBron James en las finales en 2 ocasiones y tuvo el MVP de las finales, la gente no decía Kevin Durant es el mejor jugador, y eso parece que alimentaba cierta insatisfacción con el camino que había elegido y llevó la situación a su final.
And even though he had beaten LeBron James twice in the NBA Finals and he'd gotten Finals MVP, people weren't coming away from that and saying Kevin Durant is now the best player. And that seemed to fuel a certain dissatisfaction with the situation he had chosen and bring the entire situation to a conclusion.
It seems kind of... Resulta extraño, desde mi punto de vista, que un tío como Durant, para mí el mejor jugador de la liga durante años, esté tan obsesionado con lo que la prensa o los aficionados digan de él, cuando estaba ganando, estaba en el mejor equipo. Es la nueva NBA, ¿no? Fans and all the things people say about him. When he's winning, he was in the best team. It's the new NBA.
Yeah, I think what we're learning is that this technology we use.
Sí, creo que lo que estamos aprendiendo es que esta tecnología que usamos es solo moderadamente soportable para la gente normal. Pero cuando lo llevas a una persona famosa, las redes sociales pueden darte las prioridades equivocadas y obsesionarte con lo que la gente dice de ti. Es muy difícil ignorar todo eso, es poderoso. Que debatan sobre ti en la tele y no tener sentimientos sobre ello es muy difícil. A veces lo que impulsa a estos tíos a la grandeza es la búsqueda de reconocimiento. Están desesperados por ser valorados, por demostrar su valía. Y ahora están en una trampa, porque nunca van a probarse de todo. Muchas de las conversaciones en el deporte vienen de crear controversia. Así que no van a poder silenciar las voces críticas. Y son gente competitiva que quiere silenciar a todo el mundo. Y cuando aprenden que es imposible, que esas críticas van a seguir, es difícil de manejar. No me van a dar pena porque ganan muchísimo dinero, pero les afecta. Y la prueba está en el podium. Muchos de esos tíos no están felices.
That it's actually impossible, and the voices are just going to continue. That's tough to handle. They're not going to get a lot of sympathy for it because they make so much money. But I do think it affects them emotionally, and the proof is in the pudding. A lot of these guys are not happy.
Mm-hmm. We talked before about the beef between... Hablamos antes del pique que tuviste con Durant. En el capítulo Kevin y yo cuentas una anécdota de Iguodala. Mientras leía el libro pensaba en lo difícil que tiene que ser estar alrededor de jugadores NBA cubriendo la información para los medios. Quiero saber cómo es el día a día con jugadores NBA siendo un periodista. Quiero decir, tienes que establecer una frontera, tienes que ser como un amigo, pero sin olvidar tu trabajo, tienes que ser objetivo. ¿Cómo haces eso? I really want to know how is an everyday life with NBA players being a journalist. I mean, you have to establish a frontier, you have to be like a friend, but not forgetting your job. You have to remain objective. How do you do such a thing?
It's difficult, but it's a pretty good job, so you don't want to complain about it too much.
Es difícil, pero es un muy buen trabajo, así que no quieres quejarte demasiado. Hay aspectos incómodos a la hora de hacer el trabajo, pero tienes que aguantarte, esconder tus sentimientos, incluso cuando te gritan en la sala de prensa y tienes que entrar al vestuario al día siguiente. Va con el trabajo. Tuve trabajos de oficina antes y no se me daba muy bien, así que intento recordar eso y que recibo más cosas positivas que negativas en esta experiencia. Pero sí, tienes que saber que es difícil entrar ahí, a veces es incómodo, a veces te gritan, a veces te insultan. A mí me ha pasado. Nos pasa a la mayoría si trabajas en esto. Y simplemente vives para pelear otro día más. No hay otra manera de hacerlo, y en lo que me intento centrar es en qué está interesado el lector, qué quieren saber, qué es relevante de lo que está pasando en el equipo.
That's happened to me a lot. It happens to most of us who do this, and you just live to fight another day. There's no other way to do it. And for me, the thing I try to focus on is what is the reader interested in? What do they want to know that's relevant?
Mira, pude ignorar que Kevin Durant tenía un pie fuera y que se iba. Mucha gente ahora finge que siempre lo supieron, aunque no lo dijeran entonces. No es mi caso. Yo sentí que tenía la responsabilidad para con los lectores, para los aficionados de Golden State Warriors, de decirles, Kevin Durant se va, que la gente del equipo cuenta con que se va a ir, que eso es lo que está pasando. Me sentiría muy raro mintiendo sobre eso o escondiéndolo todo el rato mientras estaba hablando del equipo. Era un aspecto significativamente realmente importante en lo que respecta al equipo. Ese es el enfoque. Es lo que nos tiene que guiar. ¿Qué está pasando en el equipo? ¿Qué es relevante para los aficionados? Cuando hablas de eso, algunas cosas van a suceder. Una de ellas es que los jugadores se van a cabrear contigo. Cuando te vean en persona te van a gritar, o no. Y tienes que lidiar con ello.
Now, when you talk about that, a few things can happen. One is that the player is really mad at you, and in person is going to yell at you and whatnot, so that's one thing, and you just have to deal with it. And then the other thing is,
y otra cosa que va a pasar es que muchos aficionados se van a cabrear contigo. Aunque vayan a entrar en el artículo y lo vayan a leer, van a matar al mensajero. Puede que no les guste lo que está pasando, puede que te griten también. Tienes que entender que estas cosas son temporales y mientras estés haciendo tu trabajo, no te tienes que machacar demasiado con ello y tienes que tirar para adelante.
You have to understand that these things are temporary, and so long as you're doing your job, you can't beat yourself up too much about it, and you just have to go forward.
Y tienes que pensar que hoy en día, da igual lo que escribas, muchos aficionados se van a cabrear contigo. A lot of fans are going to be mad at you.
Oh yeah. Oh, no matter what.
Sí, claro, da igual. Y no eres tampoco especial por ello. Es fácil pensar que eres un mártir o que la gente es injusta contigo, pero le pasa a todo el mundo. Todo el mundo con una plataforma pública recibe un determinado grado de críticas que no quiere recibir. Así que solo tienes que recordar que no eres nadie especial y simplemente tratar de hacer un buen trabajo. Es lo único que puedes hacer. My attention that you justified a lot. Me llama la atención que justificas, por ejemplo, muchas de las reacciones de Kevin Durant, como estás haciendo ahora con los fans, poniéndote en el otro lado y desde el otro punto de vista. No sé si yo sería capaz de eso. I don't know if I would be able to do that.
I mean, maybe not. I don't.
Quizás o quizás no. Es gracioso. No creo que me guste el conflicto. No lo disfruto. Simplemente por el motivo que sea, me encuentro frecuentemente metido en él.
Just for whatever reason, often find myself within it. And
quizás al conflicto le gustas tú.
Maybe conflict likes me.
Sí, quizás le gusta el conflicto. Solo lo veo como, bueno, vale, no me gusta hacer esto, pero tengo que hacerlo. No me gusta estar metido en todo esto, pero es como tiene que ser. Pero no disfruto del proceso.
But I don't actually enjoy the whole process of it.
Mi mujer siempre me dice que tengo una personalidad que no encaja con mi trabajo, y es posible, pero ha funcionado bien hasta ahora, así que voy a seguir así.
But it's worked out well so far, so I'm just going to keep going.
Ahora que hablas de tu mujer, no quiero contar todo lo que sale en el libro, porque todos los que nos están escuchando ahora mismo están entrando en Amazon para comprarlo, pero la comparación con el matrimonio que hace Iguodala es genial, quizás la mejor de todos los tiempos. The marriage comparison that Iguodala makes is great. Maybe the greatest ever.
Yeah, the marital comparison about.
Sí, hablas de cuando Iguodala me decía que me tenía que disculpar ante Durant y me dijo, yo estoy casado, tú estás casado, a veces te tienes que disculpar por mierdas que ni siquiera has hecho. Es una gran cita de André.
That's a pretty good line there from Andre.
Y aplicable para la vida, no solo para Kevin Durant. Not only Kevin Durant.
By the way, it's not just marriage. Sometimes you do have.
Sí, no solo para el matrimonio. A veces tienes que, no sé si disculparte, pero sí que tienes que entender a la otra persona. Y a veces solo está herida por algo que hiciste. Lo que tienes que entender es que no va a haber un juzgado, un juez que baje del cielo a tu casa y te diga, tienes razón en esta discusión.
There's going to be no court that descends from the heavens into your house and says, you are correct in this argument. So once you realize.
Así que cuando te des cuenta, te darás cuenta de que tienes que pensar en cómo se sienten los demás. Esto no está en el libro, pero creo que es una buena lección.
It's a good lesson for life nonetheless.
Yeah, and talking about players, hablando de jugadores, mencionas que normalmente los jugadores no leen los artículos, pero alguien les cuenta, han dicho esto de ti, han escrito esto otro, pero con Durant no es así, él lo lee todo. They write this about you, but with Katie it's not like that. He really reads everything.
Yes, reads everything.
Sí, lo lee todo, o al menos lo hacía. No sé cómo será ahora que están los Brooklyn Nets. Lee todo y tiene pensamientos muy específicos sobre frases en concreto. Y eso no es normal. No ves tíos como estos consumiendo contenido sobre ellos mismos a este nivel. Y no tienes que ser nadie especial para que te lea. No puedes decir, oh, Dios mío, Kevin Durant ha leído mi trabajo, soy la leche. No. Lee a todo el mundo. Yo no lo entiendo, pero quizás esa mentalidad es inseparable de la que le ha hecho grande. Seguimos hablando de Michael Jordan tras este documental, haciendo todas estas locuras, queriendo ganar todo el rato, con todas esas quejas y luchando contra ello todo el tiempo. Eso puede ser similar a la mentalidad de Kevin Durant.
doing all these crazy things and needing to win all the time and having all these grievances all the time and finding those grievances that could be similar to the mentality that Kevin Durant has.
Talking about winner. Hablando de mentalidad ganadora, tenemos que hablar de Steve Kerr, un entrenador novato con mucha experiencia como jugador e incluso como general manager en los Suns. En el libro nos enseñas cómo llega a tener su manera de entrenar, su filosofía. Parece tener perfil bajo. No sé si en el día a día, cubriendo los Warriors, es una gran persona con la que hablar. Gets his, I don't know how to say it, like playbook and his way of being a coach.
Philosophy, maybe?
Yeah. But he also seems to be low profile. I don't know in the day-to-day covering the Warriors, he's a huge person to talk with.
Yeah, he seems like he could be your teacher. You could be your high
Sí,
school
parece que podría ser tu profesor de instituto. Hay algo en él que hace que sea fácil hablar con él. Entiendo lo que dices. Es un tío con los pies en la tierra. Tiene los pies en la tierra.
He is very down to earth.
And talking about, y hablando de sus habilidades como entrenador, ¿crees que está un poco infravalorado? Underrated.
I don't know how to rate these things. To be honest, I think that he's incredibly important to changing the world.
No sé cómo interpretar estas cosas. Para ser sincero, creo que fue increíblemente importante para cambiar los Warriors y que se convirtieron en lo que fueron y no habría pasado sin él. ¿Cómo calificarlo en comparación con otros entrenadores? He oído cosas increíbles de Brad Stevens, su habilidad para crear jugadas, Nick Nurse de los Raptors, su habilidad para encontrar ideas que nadie más tiene. Eso es lo que es difícil de estos puestos, desde el general manager al entrenador. Es muy difícil saber quién es bueno en su trabajo. Creo que Kerr es muy bueno. La gente habla mucho de él. ¿Infravalorado? No lo sé, la gente le valora mucho. Es difícil para mí decirlo.
But underrated? I don't know. People talk about him a lot, right? He's quite celebrated, so that'd be difficult for me to say.
I'm a huge Steve Kerr. Yo soy muy fan de Steve Kerr. Creo que toma mucho de los dos mejores entrenadores de la historia, Phil Jackson y Greg Popovich. Y creo que escucha mucho también a su equipo. Hablas de su staff también en el libro. He listens a lot his staff, and you talk about his staff also in the book.
Yeah, he believes in not acting as though you know everything.
Sí, él cree en no actuar como si ya lo supieras todo y en tratar de coger las mejores ideas de todo el mundo y también en otorgarles el mérito. Hay un nivel de seguridad ahí en el que dice, mi asistente hizo esta sugerencia que fue muy buena sugerencia. Y eso es posible que haga que no le tratemos como un gran genio, pero también hace que su staff se sienta incluido e involucrado, sienten que su trabajo importa, se sienten valorados, así que trabajan más duro y todo el mundo se beneficia. Esa parece que es la filosofía que aplica.
Employs.
There is a whole chapter in your book. Hay todo un capítulo en tu libro que me rompió el corazón. Soy ese tipo de tío romántico que aún quiere creer en los jugadores que juegan en un solo equipo, en el equipo antes que en el egoísmo. Y luego llegas y explica todo lo que hay detrás de las zapatillas y yo solo quiero llorar. I just wanna cry.
You don't like that.
No te gusta eso, ¿eh? Los empleadores principales de las superestrellas, los fabricantes de zapatillas, ¿es lo que dices? ¿Es demasiado cínico para ti? No, it's too real. No, es demasiado real.
Yeah, well, you have to think about who is your primary employer.
Tienes que pensar en quién es tu empleador principal. Y esa es la empresa que te paga más dinero. Y en el caso de las estrellas de NBA, la empresa de zapatillas es con la que van a estar toda su carrera. Es la que les paga más dinero. LeBron James ha cambiado 4 veces ya de equipo, pero lleva con Nike desde que era un adolescente y tiene un contrato de por vida. Así que va a escuchar más lo que le diga Nike que su equipo. Y uno se pregunta cuál es la influencia de estas empresas en dónde acaban estos tíos. Tienen sus ideas y opiniones y estaban encantados con que Durant se uniera a los Warriors en lugar de quedarse en Oklahoma City.
You wonder what is their influence on where guys end up, because they certainly have opinions and ideas about it, and they were completely thrilled that Kevin Durant chose the Warriors rather than stay in Oklahoma City.
Yeah. Y hablas de lo importante que fue que Stephen Curry pusiera a los Warriors por delante de Under Armour en esta ocasión, in front of Under Armour in this particular time.
Yeah, the sneaker business, it's all about being...
Sí, el negocio de las zapatillas se trata de estar en la cima de la cima. Es como vendes más zapatillas, y cuando Steph Curry aceptó a Kevin Durant en los Warriors, dejó de estar en la conversación por el MVP. La venta de zapatillas cayó, las acciones de Under Armour cayeron. Fue una situación en la que él eligió el equipo, ganar con su equipo de baloncesto, por delante de la empresa de zapatillas que le paga. Eso fue bueno para los Warriors, pero horrible para Under Armour.
And so that was good for the Warriors, but it was awful for Under Armour.
The best quote la mejor cita en ese capítulo llamado La guerra de las zapatillas es la de Klay Thompson, Klay Thompson.
Oh, the one where he asked what does Kevin Durant going to the Warriors mean for Anta.
¿Te refieres cuando preguntó que qué significaba el fichaje de Kevin Durant por los Warriors para Anta?
The quote I didn't use.
La cita que no usé en el libro es de una vez que los jugadores estaban haciendo bromas en el vestuario. A Zion Williamson le acababa de estallar su zapatilla Nike, marca Jordan, y le pregunté a Klay si eso le hubiera pasado con Anta.
Would that ever happen with Anta? And Klay went, with Anta, no. Anta is made from the finest bamboo.
Y su respuesta fue no, las Antas están hechas con el mejor bambú. El humor de Klay Thompson con Anta normalmente hace que me parta. Parece que Klay es un tipo callado, pero que puede hacer reír a todo el mundo cuando habla. He can make laugh everybody whenever he speaks.
Yeah, he can be very funny, either intentionally.
Puede ser muy gracioso, queriéndolo o no. Everybody has to go to Amazon and buy the Victory Machine. Todo el mundo tiene que ir a Amazon y comprar The Victory Machine, pero no te quiero dejar marchar sin preguntarte si crees que esta dinastía se acabó. Hemos tenido una temporada extraña, la pérdida de David Stern, de Kobe Bryant, el coronavirus, todos los movimientos en los Warriors, primero D'Angelo Russell, después el traspaso por Wiggins. ¿Qué piensas de estos Warriors? ¿Qué crees que pueden hacer en el draft? ¿Y ves en la temporada 2021 a los Warriors peleando por el título? David Stern, the loss of Kobe Bryant, the coronavirus, all the moves around the Warriors. First, D'Angelo Russell, then the trade, Andrew Wiggins. What do you think about these Warriors? What can they do in the draft? And do you think in the season 2021 we'll see the Golden State Warriors fighting for the title?
I look at it as it's probably over, but if you have a few things go right, it might continue.
Creo que posiblemente se ha acabado, pero que si suceden unas cuantas cosas puede continuar. En el póker le llaman la River Card. Esa última carta, los Warriors necesitan esa River Card. Tienen una elección alta en el draft. Luego otra elección de los Minnesota Timberwolves, que como son tan malos, seguramente será una buena elección la temporada que viene. Necesitan acertar con esas dos elecciones de draft. O acertar con una, o conseguir un buen traspaso a cambio. Y también contratar buenos veteranos. Si todo eso pasa, estarán de vuelta. Pero no es fácil hacer que pasen todas esas cosas. Creo que lo pueden hacer. Si no lo hacen, creo que está claro que la plantilla actual no es suficiente para ganar el campeonato.
I just see it as a matter of can they do it? If they do, they're back in. If they don't, right now as presently constituted, the roster is not enough to win a championship.
I hope that... Espero que lo hagan. Creo que cuando Klay Thompson se rompió la rodilla y Kevin Durant se fue a los Nets, todos volvimos a querer a los Warriors y queremos ver a los Splash Brothers ganar de nuevo, esta vez en San Francisco.
Yep.
And we want to see the Splash Brothers and that team winning again, and now in San Francisco.
Yeah, I can't remember which singer.
Sí, no recuerdo qué cantante decía que no sabes lo que tienes hasta que lo pierdes, pero realmente es así. Y parece que así se siente toda la NBA. Y los Warriors necesitan salud para la temporada que viene. Y respecto al roster, pues ni siquiera sabemos las normas salariales que va a haber. Hay muchas incógnitas todavía. No sé si el público americano llegará a un punto en el que no le importen los riesgos y acepten lo que suceda. Esa también es una posibilidad. Demasiadas cosas en el aire ahora mismo tienen que ser solucionadas en el próximo año.
There are many unknowns going forward, and I also wonder if the American public reaches a point where they just go, we don't care anymore about the risks and just accept whatever happens. I mean, that's also a possibility. So much is up in the air right now, and needs to be sorted out over the next year or so.
Una última pregunta, Ethan. Mis oyentes me matarían si no te la hago. Personalmente creo que es un 99% estupideces, pero ¿qué opinas de Antetokounmpo yendo a los Warriors? 99% bullshit, but what do you think about Antetokounmpo going to the Warriors?
I don't think it's 99% bullshit.
No.
If you,
No creo que sea 99% estupideces. Si has leído mi libro, sabes cuáles son las reglas. Lo que la superestrella quiere, la superestrella lo consigue. Por decirlo simplemente. Podemos entrar en consideraciones y dificultades, pero todo se reduce a esto. Si Antetokounmpo quiere ir a los Warriors, va a pasar. Si no, obviamente no.
If he doesn't, obviously it won't.
Así que todo depende de lo que él quiera. Él puede estar muy contento en los Bucks ahora y quizás con la pandemia hayan cambiado los cálculos de alguna manera y esté menos dispuesto a tomar una gran decisión. No lo sé. Solo sé que le representa la misma agencia que a Steph Curry, que son amigos y hablan mucho. ¿Quién sabe? No digo que sean estupideces, no digo que no lo sean. Todo lo que digo es que está en sus manos, en sus enormes manos.
Who knows? That's not. I'm not saying it's bullshit. I'm not saying it isn't. All I'm saying is that it's in his hands, his very large hands is where the decision is.
Has reducido mi porcentaje al 50%. To the 50%.
Yeah. We shall see.
Bueno, ya veremos. Muchas gracias, Ethan, ha sido un placer. Te escucharé cada semana en House of Strauss, te leeré en The Athletic. Gracias por el trabajo que hacéis en The Athletic, periodismo de calidad que es muy necesario hoy en día. Thank you for the job that you guys do in The Athletic, quality journalism that is very needed nowadays.
Well, thanks for saying that. It's very nice of you, Manuel, and thanks for.
Gracias por decir eso, muy amable por tu parte, Manuel, y gracias por hacerme esta gran entrevista. Ahí teníais, ni más ni menos que a Ethan Strauss. Espero que os haya gustado la entrevista. Nosotros nos vamos, volvemos el lunes, recordad, con Danny Horror. Con él hablaremos de su mejor recuerdo NBA, charlaremos también de Last Dance, tenemos pendiente el resumen y nuestra opinión, ya sin spoilers, que ya esperemos que lo hayáis visto todos, del documental que, como yo le decía a Ethan en la entrevista, para mí no es más que un Jordan visto por Jordan, pero bueno, el lunes hablaremos de eso. Nos acercamos al capítulo 250, estamos pendientes de las novedades que hay acerca de la reanudación de la NBA. Con todo eso estaremos pendientes y de todo eso hablaremos el lunes. Pasad el mejor de los fines de semana posibles.